And we're recording. All right, we're back, everybody. We're back on this. Oh, there we go. Little technical glitch there for a second, but we're back.
I always wondered in court why it is because a woman's a prostitute, she has to have bad eyesight. Go find this Clay Bertram. Stop by checking.
That's something I commented on when I was doing the podcast with Rob Clark. I love that line. I always wondered in court why it is if a woman's a prostitute, they have bad eyesight. Yeah, it doesn't mean that they have bad eyesight. It just means that they're not credible.
Credibility, yeah.
They're a criminal. They're engaged in criminal activity, and you can't really put one criminal on the stand to testify against another criminal. I mean, you can in certain circumstances, like mafia flippers and turncoats and people who become state's evidence and stuff like that. But it's like you really want the jury to believe in your witness's credibility, and if your witness is a prostitute, then that damages their credibility. But more to that point, this is why I do not like to use the courtroom model, because the courtroom model could potentially exclude evidence, right? Because it's prejudicial, because the witness is incredible, etc., etc. So you might have a situation like that. Like there might be a crime that occurs, and there's an eyewitness to that crime who clearly saw the person that committed it, but the jury will never know about that because it's been ruled inadmissible. It doesn't mean that that evidence is fake or that it's not important. It's just inadmissible because of the interests of justice, you know?
There's a problem with any witness, even credible ones, because they could be mistaken, and there's a perception issue that when human fallibility plays a key in witness recall. It's particularly, with the credibility of a person like a prostitute who probably has been arrested before, has probably lied to police before. I mean, it's even less.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's problematic. When you have a witness like that, you really need to have some corroboration.
Yeah.
A witness like that cannot stand alone.
No, you can have that witness, but you also want to show the corroborating evidence that goes, hey, don't just take this person's word for it. This is how we know that what they're saying is true.
And they very well may be telling the truth, but you're going to need some corroboration because they could also be lying.
Yeah, they could be. Criminals are not really known for their integrity. That's why.
The six of us with almost no budget and in secret are going to solve a case that the Warren Commission couldn't solve.
I didn't pick you because of your legal skill,
Gee, thanks, boss.
Because you're a fighter.
The Warren Commission couldn't solve it because the Dallas police solved it.
Mr. Garrison, how are you? Remember me?
I certainly do. Did you vote for me?
I certainly did, sir. We sang together at the Royal Orleans, remember?
Oh, yeah, we sang, "You're the cream in my coffee."
That's a nice little scene. Show that he's a good person. Show that he's like friendly with black people.
Elected men, they can't have as much fun as they used to.
It's always nice to see you. Pleasure to serve you always.
That restaurant really does exist in New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
With SARS.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of it.
Welcome back, Lou.
Nice mustache that gentleman's rocking
Think I
there.
can get a martini?
Can you imagine the effort that goes into putting that together every morning?
Find out anything on those hobos? Photographer from the Dallas Times Herald got some great shots of them.
Never published.
Can't say that comes as a surprise anymore.
They took him to the sheriff's office and they let him go. No record of him ever being questioned. Take a good look, Chief. Any of them look like the hobos you
Actually
know?
took him to Dallas police.
These two look pretty young.
Not a single frayed collar, cuff, new haircuts, fresh shave,
Pay close
clean
attention
hands,
to the
new
music.
shoe
Very
leather.
sinister.
Well, who the hell are they then?
Pause this for a
Hi,
second.
Susie.
They're sitting there being like, who the hell are these people? They never mention all of these people were arrested. They all have arrest records.
They didn't know that at the time.
Oh, really? They didn't?
Yeah, the bums were not known, or the hobos, I should say, were not known to it was not publicly released until the 80s.
Oh, okay.
And that was a Dallas police thing. It had nothing to do with the government.
Oh, okay.
They released that in the 80s, but after they released them, after they were identified, the FBI went and tracked two of them down and spoke to them. They told the whole story of why they were arrested. They were like from out of town, passing through Dallas.
They were riding the rails. They were caught in a rail car. Yeah.
Only one was not
True
interviewed
hobo
because
style.
he had passed away, but they talked to his sister and showed her pictures,
Yep.
and she identified him as her brother.
Yeah.
And that was the Gus Abrams.
I remember reading something that woman said. She's like, yeah, my brother was a serious drunk at that point in his life. You know, he was pretty in rough shape.
And this goes back to the debate we had with Michael Brownlow earlier today. There's a gentleman with him. I produced the evidence. I showed, I had with me police records of each hobo that was arrested. I had pictures of each hobo that you could compare to the William Allen was the photographer. I had photos you can compare. You can see that they're the same guys, just older.
Mm-hmm.
And but he would rather believe, rather than my documentation and photographs, he would rather believe statements that came years after the fact, where these hobos were proclaimed to be other figures that came up in history in other infamous cases. So he would rather believe that they're them way after the fact than to believe the primary evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I present primary evidence to a person, I tell them, you can get this yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make this up.
Mm-hmm.
You can find this on your own and verify it for yourself.
I mean, you have to keep in mind, like, you're fighting a losing battle, because a lot of people don't care about the primary evidence. They don't care if they're using logical fallacies. And when you try to tell them, you know, this is not a proper argument you are making. This is the logical fallacy appeal to emotion. This is the logical fallacy quote mining. This is the logical fallacy ad hoc reasoning. They don't even care. And it's like, if you don't care that the things you are saying are logically fallacious, then what am I supposed to do with that? You know, it's like talking to a wall. You're just wasting your time, you know?
I even demonstrated also that if you look at the picture of the hobo who's purported to be Charles Harrelson, and you look at the actual picture of a real Charles Harrelson when he was arrested in 1960, you can tell it is not the same person. The ears aren't even the same. The facial structure is the same. If you look at Charles Harrelson arrest photo from 1960, he looks pretty much like Woody Harrelson.
Mm-hmm.
Looks very much like Woody.
Looks like a young Woody Harrelson. Yeah, totally.
He does not look like John Jitney, who was actually the guy who was arrested.
That was one of the bums, though.
Yes,
one of the tramps.
The one purported to be Charles Harrelson.
Oh, okay.
Now, they say he's other people is that guy. I mean, there's the Chauncey Hold and the what's the CIA guy?
Oh, E. Howard Hunt.
E. Howard Hunt. See, these bums are everybody. I
mean, they're
how many bums? How many sets of hobos are there?
Yeah, they're whoever you want them to be. You know.
Sorry, I'm late.
This could be it. Let's start looking for him. What about that railroad man, Lee Bowers? Saw those men at the picket fence?
Graveyard dead. August this year. Single car accident on an empty road in Midlothian, Texas. The doctor said he was some kind of strange shock when he died.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier today. I thought he had a stroke or something because he was in some strange shock when he died. But it was a single car accident. It was years after the fact. It was after he had testified to the Warren Commission. And I've read his Warren Commission testimony. You know, there's nothing there.
You can check motor vehicles accident statistics, and you can see single car accidents happen.
They do happen.
And if the doctor is correct in that he was under some type of shock,
mm-hmm.
if he saw within that last brief second before he crashed that he was about to crash,
mm-hmm.
of course, that's going to put him in the shock.
Yeah, or he could have fallen asleep at the wheel or something and woke up a second before he crashed. Oh shit, dead.
I really don't know how the medical methodology in determining a person was under shock before they die. How do you do that?
Yeah, what do you look for? You know what I mean?
A whore. She said she was a
whore
dope runner for Jack Ruby. And she said that Ruby knew Oswald for years.
Can we talk to her?
She did too. Hit and run.
I don't know if she really said that. Did she say that? That Ruby knew Oswald?
No, I don't know that. I think maybe she might have, but I'm not entirely certain. We really should have researched this a bit better. David, if you're watching, buddy, this is why we needed you here, man.
All right, it'll blow up right in our face. Susie, what'd you find out on Oswald?
Negative on his tax records. Classified. First time I know a DA can't get a tax record. So I put together a list of all the CIA files on Oswald that were part of the Warren report and asked for them. There are about 1,200 documents. And can't get one of them. All classified as secret on the grounds of national security. They gave me his grammar school records. It's a study of his pubic hairs. Lonely kid, no father, joins the Marines at 17. He learns Russian. He acts overtly Marxist, but he's stationed at a top-secret air base in Japan where U-2 spy flights over Russia originate.
Yeah, but he was a radar
He's
operator. He was
discharged
not
from the
involved with
Marines,
those flights.
supposedly because his mother's sick.
His
Stays
mom
home 3
faked an
days,
injury.
and with a $1,500 ticket from a $203 bank account, he goes to Moscow.
Mr. Oswald, do you understand the severity of the action that you're about to take?
Yes, I do, sir, and I
You ever
am
see the
also
documentary
very familiar,
where they go over
with
to
the
Russia and
argument
interview
that I wish,
some of the people
to
that
No,
my,
no.
citizenship
It's called
and
An American Assassin or something like that.
Oh.
It's I think it was
I'm
done in
going
Europe
to,
or something.
make
Oh,
known to the
I should-
law
I should look
that
into
The
I
that.
commentator sounds European.
Oh, no, I've never seen
It's
that.
pretty good. They talk to actual people that knew Oswald.
Oh, yeah,
Finally, they shuttle
in
him
the
to a
Soviet
radio
Union?
Yeah.
factory
Oh, that's
in
cool.
Minsk, where he lives as high on the hog as he ever has. He's given 5,000 rubles, a roomy apartment with a balcony,
I'll send you a link.
has
Nice.
affairs with local girls.
Makes sense. He's a spokesman.
But he never writes, speaks, or does any propaganda for the Russians.
I love that scene. With one breath, it makes sense that they treated him so well. He was a spokesman. Literally, what their next breath is, he never writes, speaks, or does any propaganda work for the Russians. Like, what kind of bullshit spokesman does not speak?
The Russians said he never did anything for the Americans. They
Yeah.
said he didn't even know how to work his camera when he bought it.
Yeah, there was a thing. He had this shortwave radio, and he was listening to like a Voice of America and other Western broadcasts while he was in the Soviet Union, and it broke. And he actually had to take it into the radio plant and get somebody to help him fix it. And it was a minor repair. Like a spy would be familiar with the operation of radios and how to repair them. You know what I mean? Oh,
Well,
wrong
the
button.
KGB was tracking him the whole time.
Oh yeah,
They put him in Minsk purposely so they could watch him. It was better than having him in Moscow.
yeah. And then they were opening his mail. They bugged his apartment.
He suspected that.
We have all of that stuff. We have all the transcripts from them surveilling him, but there was never anything. He befriended a guy at the Horizon Radio plant, a guy Sergei Gorbalev. No, it wasn't Sergei Gorbalev. Was his father. Pavel Gorbalev was his buddy at the radio plant, and KGB approached his buddy because his buddy's father Sergei was an Air Force general, and they're like, look, we know your family, we know you're tight with us, we need you to help us out, we need you to get buddy up to this guy and tell us what he's telling
Marina
you.
knew who he was, that kid or
Yeah.
that guy, because she testified about him when she was interviewed by HSCA.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like they he did. His father told him in no uncertain terms, you are to cooperate with the KGB, obviously, and you're going to tell these people whatever they want to know. But the thing is, there wasn't really anything to tell. There was another time where he went hunting with some of the people he worked with in the radio plant in Minsk, and it was him, the guy he worked with, and the guy's 3 friends. The guy's 3 friends were all KGB, and they would take turns sleeping at night so that somebody was always watching him, always watching his tent, to see if he like snuck off in the middle of the night. He never did. They dropped hints as they were going to this area to go hunting, being like, hey, I hear there's this super secret military radio installation or something out in these woods. But he never tried to get away, never tried to go off on his own. You know, there's no proof that he was doing anything.
Colonel in Soviet intelligence at a trade union dance.
Oh my god, we gotta stop this every like 3 seconds. Marina's uncle was MVD. MVD is the equivalent of like state police. He was not in intelligence. He was in law enforcement in the Soviet Union, but he was not doing intelligence work. He was like the equivalent of a state trooper or provincial police, like what we have in Canada. Provincial police, state police, same deal.
By the way he speaks. 6 weeks later they marry, have a daughter.
The only explanation for the royal treatment can be that he did give them radar secrets. Or fake secrets.
6 months after he arrives in Russia, Francis Gary
Or because they
Powers'
wanna
U-2
complain.
spy flight goes down in Russia. That plane was untouchable.
Well, it obviously
Powers
wasn't
hinted
untouchable
that
if they
Oswald
shot it
could have
down.
given the Russians enough data to hit it, and as a direct result, the peace summit between Khrushchev and Eisenhower failed.
Francis Powers' U-2 was shot down about 6 months after Lee Harvey Oswald got to the Soviet Union. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that he had technical knowledge he could have given these people for them to, upgrade their equipment or whatever to hit the U-2, which they previously could not hit. Is 6 months enough time to break that down and analyze it and apply it in practical application in the field? Maybe not. But the truth is, I think they were just capable of engaging that aircraft. Francis Powers' U-2 was shot down by a Soviet SA-2 surface-to-air missile, and that was the same anti-aircraft weapon system that shot down Rudolf Anderson's U-2 over San Cristobal during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
I thought there was another one.
Yeah, there's another one too. The same week Rudolf Anderson's U-2 got shot down, another U-2 got shot down in China over one of their nuclear test sites at a place called Lopnor.
Did they survive, those pilots?
No, neither one of them survived.
Only Powers.
Only Powers. But yeah, again, you know, you have 3 instances of this one type of aircraft, the U-2, being successfully engaged by the Soviet SA-2 system. And like, even to this day, decades later, generations later, the Russians are known for their anti-aircraft weapon systems. That's like what they're famous for. In Western armies, you'll have like an armored unit and a mechanized unit, and then you have an anti-aircraft unit that provides anti-aircraft defense for this area where the other units operate. In the Russian military, it's common to have anti-aircraft elements present in every mechanized unit. So if you're an armored unit, you have anti-aircraft vehicles with you. If you're a mechanized infantry unit, you have anti-aircraft vehicles with you. The Russian anti-aircraft inventory is very elaborate, very impressive. It's their thing. And Russia makes a lot of money selling weapons. And this is one of the things they sell is anti-aircraft defense systems. They're known for it.
Well, it seems, I don't know if this is a Jim Garrison thing, but it seems like they're trying to make a correlation in the timing to make it look like Oswald would have been the one to give the information on the U-2. But as we know, correlation
does not equal causation.
Yeah. So you know, it's a clever tactic in timing that they use, which we'll see again. Like
honestly, it was 6 months, or it might have even been less than 6 months between Oswald's first day in the Soviet Union and Francis Powers' U-2 getting shot down. Like, let's say the second he got there, he's like, here's the information I learned from being a radar operator at this U-2 base. I don't think 6 months is enough time to take it, analyze it, figure out what you need to do, apply that in the field, and upgrade their weapon systems so that they can shoot down U-2s. I think they were just capable of doing it.
I think they could have, but
maybe.
I don't think they did, but I think if they were going to do it, I think 6 months would be enough time.
Maybe. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know about the intricacies of that. Maybe it was. I honestly have no idea.
If he had direct information on it and he was giving it to the Soviets, I mean, they could probably work something up on the information he passed on to them. But it's total speculation that he ever did.
It is. Well, I mean, like, Lee Harvey Oswald, when he was in the Marines at Atsugi, he was like, what, a private first class? That's, what, the second lowest rank? Like, how much stuff could this guy possibly know?
So, and also, who gave the information to shoot down the other U-2s?
Yeah. How did they do that, you know?
Can't help thinking. Maybe someone in our military.
Was it Roscoe White?
Maybe. Could have been.
Maybe Oswald was a part of that. It gets weirder.
You are an assistant DA. Remember, just stick to what you can prove in
Facts?
court.
You want facts?
Please.
Susie,
From
don't get
1945
sidetracked.
to 59.
How does he get back to the States? That's the point. All right. Does he have any problems with Uncle Sam?
None. The State Department issues him a new passport within 48 hours and loans him the money to travel. He's never investigated or charged by the Navy for revealing classified information, or as far as we know, debriefed by the CIA.
Son of a bitch should have been.
As far as you know, does the CIA normally report when they debrief people?
Does she have any problems getting out?
No, none either. No, it's bizarre. It's next to impossible to get Russian sweethearts out. This is a man who has defected.
Well, like, the thing is, Marina, she had her own kind of scandalous life living in the Soviet Union. And one of the things that the Russians told us later on was, like, you know, they looked at her and they kind of figured out, okay, you know what, this person isn't really that desirable to begin with. So it was kind of a 2 birds with 1 stone deal. You know, her family wasn't anybody. They weren't politically well connected. She was kind of a problem herself. So they were like, okay, good, we'll get rid of both of them, you know? We're going to send them both to America, get them both out of our hair. 2 birds, 1 stone.
It's crazy. Ordinary people, they get blacklisted for having leftist affiliation.
Doesn't add up, does it?
Next thing we know, he's living in Dallas, Fort Worth, October 62, working 6 months at Jagger's Child Stovall. This is a photographic firm that contracts to make maps for the U.S. Army. Oswald becomes chummy with the white Russian community of Dallas, all rabid anti-communist. It's odd. His closest friend is an oil man named George DeMornshield, who's about 35 years older than Oswald, who is only 23
According to
and
McAdams,
supposedly broke.
the
DeMornshield
Russians down there were trying to help Marina more so than trying to befriend Oswald.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they liked her more.
Nazi sympathizer.
I think you're really.
Isn't that the original purpose that they got involved? You know, she's a foreigner, didn't know the language. And Ruth Payne was familiar with them.
Yeah, these people were white Russians. There's white Russians, which were like loyalist, imperialist Russians. They liked the Tsar. Then there's the red Russians, and there was the Russian Civil War, the white Russians versus the red Russians. The red ones are communists, obviously, Bolsheviks. And a lot of people who had means, had wealth, could get out, could get their families out. They got out before the Soviet Union was like firmly established, when it was still possible to get out. So these people, honestly, they hated the communists more than we did, you know? They hated them because it was their land, their people, their culture.
Just like the Cubans.
Yeah, they hated them more than we in the West did. So when they heard that there was this young couple who had come from Minsk, from behind the Iron Curtain, you know, they were eager to meet these people, because you almost never meet people coming from Eastern Europe in this period. And they were eager, you know, some of them had friends in Minsk, and they want to know, you know, do you guys know these people? What's going on in the Soviet Union and everything? So they were eager to meet Oswald and Marina. But once they got to know Oswald, they really didn't like him.
Right.
There was an incident.
I don't think George DeMorn should like him, according to his testimony.
Mm-hmm. You know, he said he was a semi-educated hillbilly. That's how he described Lee Harvey Oswald. I think George DeMornshield was just an oddball character, and so naturally he kind of gravitated towards other people who were also oddball characters, you know? It's kind of like me, you know? But there was an incident where Oswald beat his wife. He beat Marina, and Marina went crying to these Russians to help her, and they told her, look, we'll help you, but if you go back to him, that's it. We'll never help you ever again. And sure enough, she went back, and they kind of just cut her off after that, you know?
Intellectual, well-read, speaks excellent Russian, a man who adored JFK.
I think he's made some mistakes regarding Cuba. I think he's doing a pretty good job. If he succeeds, in my opinion, I think he'd make a great president, a really handsome one too.
Scenery, Susie. Now don't get
you're kind of all over the place there, bro.
The man that bottom line nailed Oswald to the Warren Commission as a potentially violent man and linked him to the rifle.
He was not potentially violent. His violence is well documented.
That goes back to childhood.
It goes back to his earliest days. You know, there's an old Jesuit saying. It goes, give me the boy, I'll give you the man. You know, you look at people in their earliest days, and I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, it's set in stone and can never be changed, but I think core features of your psyche are innate. If you have a predisposition to violence, you always had that predisposition to violence. You know, I didn't become a nerd. I was always a nerd, you know? But there is no doubt he was violent in the Marine Corps. He was violent against his mother. He was violent against himself. He was violent against his wife.
Since Castro is...
it's hardly like this asserted claim.
He could go any way with that country. He could go the way of communism.
But what you got there? You have a rifle in there? Lee, tell me, what are you shooting at? Rabbits or fascists?
I hunt.
You hunt? Hillbillies.
We don't know he's CIA, but it's certainly very probable. Call him Oswald's handler.
Yeah, we'll just assert this claim. We'll call him Oswald's handler. There's no good reason to think that.
It's through Janet Williams in October '63. The Lee gets the job at the warehouse right smack on Elm Street at the book depository.
Presumably so he can now exercise his intellect stacking school texts at $1.25 an hour.
Marina fights often with Lee about many things. Their secrecy, their lack of money. She says that Lee is not sexually adequate.
Do they pay Marina to portray her?
I don't know if they have to or not.
Why didn't they use Ruth Payne's real name then?
Under the alias of O.H. Lee.
I don't know.
Do you want to look at television? Are you all right, Mr. Lee?
I mean, maybe because Marina, well, they're both in the public record.
All I can find out about the Williams is that their tax returns are classified and that Bill Williams has links through his family to the CIA and does classified work for Bell Helicopter. Bill's convenient separation from Janet allows Marina to move into her house, where she suddenly becomes Marina's best friend. And there, Marina and Lee have a second daughter.
Have to go away. Just for a short while. What is the matter with this family?
I love Lee.
He's good.
And
He's
I
good portraying
sorry
Oswald.
him.
Sorry.
Yes. When he's arrested, Marina buries him with the public. Her description of him is that of a psychotic and violent man.
I have too much facts, and facts tell me that Lee shot Kenneth.
Well,
After
she
they kept
was
her
his
locked away
wife.
for
She
2
was the
months
mother of
surrounded
his
by federal
children.
people, and fearing she'd be
Like,
deported
seems
back
to
to
me
Russia.
like she would know him
That
pretty
poor
well.
woman was probably suffering from nervous
Like, honestly,
exhaustion.
I had a
They taught her
common
how to
marriage. I
answer.
slept in the same bed as a
When they
woman.
think
We
she's
lived
ready,
together in
they
the
buy new
apartment.
dresses,
Did that woman know
polish her
me?
appearance, and
She
wheel
knew
her
me
out
as
on
well as
cue.
anybody else in my life knew me.
Warren Commission.
Oswald was no angel, that's clear. But who was he?
I'm lost, boss. What are we saying here?
We're saying that when Oswald went to Russia, he was not a real defector. That he was an intelligence agent on some kind of mission for our government and remained one till the day he died. That's what we're saying.
Therefore, because Oswald pulled the trigger,
No proof of that.
the intelligence community
No
murdered their
paper
own
trail,
commander
no
in chief.
money trail, no
Is that what you
nothing.
said?
Nothing
I'll tell you
that
one
could
better,
be
Bill.
followed or
Maybe
analyzed.
Oswald didn't even pull the trigger. Nitrate tests indicate he hadn't even fired a rifle on November 22nd.
Nitrate tests on his hands tested positive. So that, I mean, that doesn't necessarily indicate that he did fire a gun. But, I mean...
It's a false statement as far as the film is concerned.
It's false. It's false to tell people nitrate tests indicate that he did not fire a rifle. Well, his hands tested positive for nitrate, so does that indicate that he fired a handgun? You know, it's one of these things with the nitrate test, the paraffin tests. Conspiracy theorists get it both ways. You know, they can say, well, he did not test positive on his cheek, therefore he did not fire a rifle. Well, he tested positive is on his hands. Does that mean he fired a gun? No, that doesn't mean anything. So it's like test positive doesn't mean anything. Test
Have it both
negative
ways.
doesn't mean anything. Yeah,
Yeah, but
I mean, both ways.
of course they can say that when you touch boxes, you can get a positive result for a nitrate test because it reacts to chemicals other than just
Yeah, true.
gun
If you
nitrates.
happen to get urine on your hands, you can test positive for nitrates. Sure, that's actually one of the ways that gunpowder is made. You distill niter from saved urine. But I mean, yeah, it could have been that he peed on his hands. It could have been that he touched cardboard. It could have been that he fired a gun. And when you
The
look at the
FBI
dispersal pattern, it's like right around, you know, his
Where it
hand
would
as,
be if you
as
fired a
if he
pistol.
was holding a pistol. Yeah.
Prior to the assassination, the FBI conducted tests on the reliability of paraffin examinations, and they found that the test produced false positives, false negatives.
Yep.
It was very unreliable, and to the point where they wouldn't use it in court because it just wasn't reliable. It's inadmissible.
I remember they had agents fire the Carcano rapid fire 3 times and then immediately check them for paraffin, and some of those guys tested negative for it. But it's like, consider the situation with Oswald. He shoots, he leaves, goes home, gets his gun, shoots again, goes to the theater, gets arrested, gets taken downtown, and then there's a bit of time, and then he gets tested. So that, in my opinion, just increases the probability of a negative result.
Well, the negative result could come from the basic design of the Carcano, because if you look at Cortland Cunningham, who was a firearms expert for the FBI, who did some of those tests, he testified that the actual weapon will not even discharge gases toward the face that can be tested.
Yeah.
So you can shoot a rifle, a Carcano rifle, and not have a positive result on your cheek.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the time, if you can imagine what a person looks like holding this rifle, like your cheek is pressed to the stock, you're either looking down the sights or you're looking through the scope. Like, if your cheek is pressed to that, how are you going to get nitrates on there to begin with?
I think it's the opposite cheek.
Was it? Was it on the other side?
No. What I'm saying is I think the nitrates will deposit themselves on the opposite cheek.
I thought that side of the rifle was sealed. When you work the bolt, I thought the casings eject out that side. So it's like you shoot and then you work the bolt and they eject out. If you're looking down from the barrel, down the barrel at the sights, they eject out of the right side, I believe, don't they?
Well, with the Carcano rifle, I believe they eject. They do. They eject out the right side, but there's no gases coming out because the chamber is sealed when the charge goes off.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the whole point of a rifle, to direct the heat and gas down the barrel? Like, doesn't that?
Some you can get test positive, but those nitrate tests of that era were unreliable.
Totally unreliable.
But nowadays, I mean, they have better tests now. You can actually get pretty reliable results. And I think they'd be consistent if you test them.
Interesting.
And on top of that, they didn't even bother to see if the rifle had been fired that day.
As far as I know, there is no test to determine whether or not a rifle has been fired within the last 24 hours, 48 hours.
There isn't. There's no test for that.
I mean, you can smell the muzzle and see if it smells like gunpowder, but I mean, that's not a real test or anything.
Print on the weapon.
Well, it went to the FBI, Bill. FBI didn't find a goddamn thing.
Yeah, we gotta pause this every 3 seconds. This shit is rapid fire. The FBI did not find prints on the rifle because they had already been lifted by the Dallas police. And the rifle and the lifted prints were sent to the FBI separately.
Confirmed.
And confirmed, yeah. So in the time where the FBI got the rifle, checked it for prints, didn't find any, they made that report, and then the prints that had been lifted by Lieutenant Day showed up. And they were like, oh, okay, this is why there's no prints.
And they were actually, the palm print was dated and signed or initialed by Carl Day.
Yep.
Now, some people will say that he did it after the fact and made it look like he did it on the day of. But that's just speculation. I mean, you have to come up with something more than your speculation that he just did it after the fact just to cover his tracks. I mean, what do you have about that? How can you prove that? How did he know at that time Oswald was going to be framed?
Yeah.
So
you have people faking stuff who could not possibly have known that they have to fake this stuff. And I mean, even if they did know, how could you fake that?
He comes back a week later, and one guy in the Dallas Police Department suddenly finds a palm print.
One guy in the Dallas Police Department, Lieutenant Day, freaking fingerprint
He had already
expert.
found it on November 22nd. He found it then.
Yeah.
And then this is where I do criticize the officials when the FBI, when they ordered the FBI to go in and take the evidence. Because Lieutenant Day was working on the Carcano rifle when they took it. He was not finished. Had he finished it, it would have been a better chain of custody, preservation of evidence. It would have been better. But they just totally interrupted it. And then I do fault them for that. It was a terrible thing that happened that way. And it just made
invited problems.
Yeah, it just invited these allegations, I think.
And I mean, Jim Garrison, you're the district attorney of New Orleans. You're an officer of the court. For you to disparage the police, some guy in the Dallas Police Department found a palm print on it. He's a lieutenant. He's the fingerprint guy. You know what I mean? That's his discipline. That's his field of expertise. As an officer of the court, you really should not be disparaging another officer of the court.
That happens here in the States a lot.
Really, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it just depends on which side you're in, prosecution or defense.
Yeah, with a defense attorney, okay, that kind of makes more sense. But I mean, for the district attorney to do that, that's especially
give a phony name and walk out with a rifle which can never be traced.
Why go to a store, give a phony name, when there are people there who can see you, who can later say, yeah, the guy that they arrested, he was the guy that in here and he bought the rifle. Yeah. Why would you do that? It would be better to use an alias and order the weapon, because at least, of course, it can be tracked back to you. But in Oswald's mind, he might not have been thinking that. He might have thought he was okay with using Alex Heidel. That's not me. They don't know who I am. I'll just use a fake name, order this rifle, and then I'm good.
And it doesn't matter what you're buying. Anytime you buy anything retail and you go into a store to buy it, you are going to pay more than if you buy it out of a catalog or you get a mail order or whatever. Anytime you buy things retail, you pay more because there's a premium. You get what you want today, right now, in your hands. Plus the weapons in Dallas, I'm sure if you went shopping around, you could have found a $12 to $20 rifle, sure, in 1963, sure. But I mean, these weapons, a lot of the times, these were like prized possessions, so they were very ornate and elaborate and expensive, and Oswald couldn't afford that.
Frame him, obviously.
There's a lot of smoke there, but there's some fire.
If they're going to frame him, why not frame him with his real name? Why frame him with an alias?
Yeah, or why not frame him with a better gun that people aren't going to question? If you found an M14 or M1, no one's going to question it. If we found an M1, it would make more sense. That's the weapon he demonstrated proficiency with. That's the weapon he was trained on.
If you're going to plant a bullet, why not mangle it up so people believe it's not planted?
You guys should have got me and Fred to do this conspiracy. We could have done a much better job than you guys. You guys exposed the whole thing, man.
Y'all got to start thinking on a different level, like the CIA does.
Yeah.
Now we're through the
Big
looking glass
time.
here, people. White is black, and black is white. Just maybe Oswald is exactly what he said he was. A patsy.
Black is white, and white is black. What you think is real is false, and what you think is false is real. And they show, as this scene goes on, they show them faking the famous backyard photographs. Those photographs are as real as anything can ever be. The method they show in this scene of him faking it, that method would not escape stereoscopic analysis. It would not escape microscopic analysis of the individual grains that make up the photo. That method of fakery would be easily detected by actual experts who know what they're doing. I've been there.
It's unbelievable. You were here.
Yes, sir. This is where I was sitting.
See, look, they actually did cover the whole whole parking lot. That's very impressive.
Shots came from near that wooden fence over there, near the overpass. And I saw a man run from the fence toward those railroad cars. I made it very clear to the Warren people that one of the shots came from behind that picket fence.
Very likely.
Saw the smoke come out 6 or 8 feet above the ground, right out from under those trees. We, all four of us, all railroad men, seen about the same thing. The smoke came from behind the hedge.
I was standing next to my friend Mary Mormon, who took the photograph when he was killed. I stepped down to the curb and yelled, "Hey, Mr. President!" And then shots rang out. Mary fell to the ground right away. She was yelling, they're shooting, get down." I just stood there watching. The driver had stopped. I don't know what was wrong with that driver. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash of light in the bushes, and that last shot just ripped his head off.
I saw a flash of light in the bushes. Not I saw the silhouette of somebody standing there shooting at the president.
Actually, no one said that.
Yeah.
Not even that. No one said that.
Not even that. Not even her. So it's like you're making up stuff to make this witness say things that she did not actually say in real life.
If they're portraying Jean Hill on day one, she said she did not see, she heard. Like the gunman. She didn't see a gunman. She said she heard a gunman. Mm-hmm. And then later on...
So did everybody else.
Later on it became she saw a figure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the...
You know, there's an old expression, it goes, the story gets better every single time I tell it. You know, as time goes on, it gets more... You gild the lily a bit more, you know? It becomes more elaborate, more details that were not there originally.
You see that composite where it has two videos, one of Jean Hill speaking on the day of, and then another while she's speaking like a couple decades later. The difference in what she says. And they play one after the other back and forth. It is hilarious.
Oh no, I haven't seen that. Send me a link for that too, bro.
It's called Jean Hill Enigma.
I'll look that up.
Headshot.
It's not a good spot. I have stood behind that fence. You are exposed to the whole world out there. There's no place to hide. I think it's a good shot
for potentially making, not the best because you have lateral movement, which is more difficult than linear movement. But I think it's a good spot to hit someone. However, there's a lot of problems. The one you just mentioned, it's completely open, and you can be seen by everyone that's there, even people with film.
Yeah.
And also, it's just implausible due to the injuries that's sustained by the president. A person shooting from there would have caused more injury to the opposite side of Kennedy's head because that's the travel of a bullet would have done that.
They also could have put a round into Jackie. They could have put a round into anybody standing in the middle section in between Elm and Main. And on that grassy part in between Elm and Main, you have a bunch of people who are looking right at you. Some of those people have cameras, you know. All it takes is a fraction of a second. Click, you're done. You're caught. It's not a good position for this type of shooting.
Everything was just frozen. Seemed like people weren't even breathing. Like you were looking at a picture.
I think they get this from Beverly because she says that.
You know,
she was a consultant.
I'm aware of that. This is actually a phenomenon called time dilation. People who experience PTSD often report this, that in the heat of the moment, time appears to dramatically slow down.
They teach cops that too.
Yeah, in the moment where something traumatic is occurring or has just occurred, time appears to dramatically stop. You know, people say that their whole life flashes before their eyes, and it feels like in those few seconds an eternity has passed. This is a phenomenon. This does occur in reality.
I've actually been to some hairy situations, but I've only experienced that once, and it was when I was riding my bike as a kid, and I was falling off the bike. Everything just seems to slow down. I thought I was going to get hurt really bad, and I had that sensation.
Yeah. No, it's very common with people who experience traumatic events, a shooting, violence, a car accident, a bike accident. Yeah, it does happen. People who also take drugs report that too, that time appears to dramatically speed up or dramatically slow down.
Except for this one man. I saw this one man running from the corner of the book depository over towards the parking lot.
It was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And I was driving west on Elm Street toward the Triple Underpass in a rented car. A light blew by. I will never forget that day. There was quite a bit of traffic, and I stopped alongside the screen pickup truck. And I remember it being very noticeable because it had one of its wheels.
You ever see any of these, the main actors who are very popular? I see them, of course, but I never see, where's she now? I mean, some of these children, have you seen them?
You know, maybe she's appeared in a bunch of stuff, and I just don't recognize her.
You know whose brother he is, right?
Joe Pesci?
No.
He looks like Joe Pesci.
You mean you identified Jack Ruby on Saturday?
Bill Murray's brother.
That's right.
Oh, really?
He plays Ruby, yes.
Really?
He and Bill Murray brothers.
I didn't know that.
I think he might have passed away.
Oh, I did not know that. No,
he and Bill Murray.
Oh, interesting. Little film trivia for you there, guys.
These others. You said one of them might be him.
They look a little bit like him, but I'm sure this is the man.
Well, it was him I was chasing up the grassy knoll. I thought maybe our guys had shot back. Maybe we got one of them. When I got up to the parking lot, all I saw were railroad workers and Alice's finest.
See, you see these images, people have it ingrained in your mind, and so when you hear the stories, you have images to associate them with, and it becomes like fact in your mind.
Yeah, and you know what? It's important to note that people who are in those situations, those people are not lying. They're not lying. They honestly, sincerely believe the things that they're saying. Their own subconscious has tricked them, and honestly, that happens all the time. You know, it's not weird. It's not unexpected. This is totally normal. You know, your mind connects the dots, right?
They knew everything Mary and I had done all day.
So they knew everything you and Mary had done all day. What, have they been following you around all day? How did they even know you were going to the plaza to begin with? And here, right here, you're going to see a scene where it's implied that they almost had the 3-shot single bullet theory ready to go before the actual shooting had occurred, which is not possible.
That is very outlandish. If that's what this movie purports.
Yeah.
So how do you know you're going to be able to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, the ballistics is so random.
Yeah.
There's no way to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, how do you guys know? President Kennedy, when this interview is allegedly occurring, President Kennedy is still at Parkland Hospital. Governor Connolly is in surgery. How do you know that a bullet isn't going to come out of that guy's body? How do you know that the autopsy isn't going to find bullet fragments inside of Kennedy? You
Same thing
know
applies for the guy who supposedly planted the bullet. There's no way he would have known that when Dr. Shaw at 4:30 said the bullet was in Connolly's leg, still in Connolly's leg. There's no way the guy planting the bullet would know that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So you're planting an extra bullet when there's one in Connolly's leg. So
congratulations, you just exposed the whole conspiracy. I mean, like, they, with one breath, conspiracy theorists give this conspiracy almost omniscient powers of foresight and planning and knowledge. They know
and superhuman ability.
Yeah, they know things that they could not possibly know, and they know they have to fake stuff and plant stuff that they couldn't possibly know. They need to fake and plant, right? But then with their next breath, the conspiracy suddenly switches characters and becomes bumbling and inept, you know? They know to plant the bullet, but they don't plant a bullet that shows enough damage. Thus, they expose the conspiracy. You know, it's just absurd.
Of course, I guess I
It's
wouldn't
ridiculous nonsense.
Well, some of it is like just plugging in where there's holes. Once you have a story that has holes, you have to go back and plug the holes.
Yep.
You heard
Yep.
echoes.
And then as time goes by,
We have 3
people
bullets and 3
like
shots
me and you
that
show up to criticize it, and then
That's
those
all we're
holes
willing to say.
have to be
No,
plugged
sir.
even more, you know?
I saw
So
a
it's
man
like,
shooting from
it's
over
this
there
constant
behind that
repair
fence.
job that's going
Now,
on,
what are you
you
gonna
know?
do
Brown
about
loaded
that?
that today.
Yeah,
We gotta go
yeah.
out there and get
We
it.
have that taken
Oh, wait till
care
you
of.
guys see those
You
videos.
only
Oh
heard
my
3
god.
shots, and you're not to talk about
That
this
was
with anybody.
one of the sloppiest
No one.
things
You
I've ever been involved in.
Which is strange, because it's less than 20 minutes after the assassination.
Brownlow is a
I knew something was crooked
Real
as a dog's
life,
hind leg. Sure enough,
gish galloping.
when I read my
I never
testimony
experienced
as published
gish
by the
galloping
Warren Commission,
In real
person,
time,
yeah.
in real life,
start to
yeah.
finish.
Well, that's
Until
a problem,
today.
Mr. Garrison, is they've been altered. My statements. See, this one here says, Mercer
Look at that
could not
hairdo.
identify
Yeah.
any of the photographs as being identical with the person that she had observed slouched over
This
the
is,
wheel of the green
Julianne
Ford pickup
Mercer.
truck. Well, that is not true. I never said any such thing. I recognized him and I told him so.
Let's take your time, be sure.
I'm sure. And then here on the Dallas Sheriff's report, this is really strange. You see that notarized signature right there at the bottom of each page? That is not my signature. And there never was any notary present during any of my
There's
questions.
probably that. What's it, Collins? What was her name?
Mrs.
Patsy
Mercer was a
Collins?
former FBI
The
man.
lady that did all the affidavits. The notarized lady.
Oh, I don't know.
Mary Collins, something like that. But if you look at all the affidavits, most of them are by the same lady,
Mm.
and it's probably the same lady that did hers.
Well, like, she can't sign for her, though.
Well, I used to go over there a
Julianne
lot.
Mercer would
No,
have to
no.
put her
Especially
own
if
Yeah,
Got it.
she
signature.
probably just didn't remember doing it.
Well, it's like, you know, she's saying, this is not my signature. Okay, let's take that. Let's have some signature experts verify it, and let's hear what the experts have to say. Is this actually Julianne Mercer's signature, or did somebody fake this? And is this a real signature, or was this done with an electric pen or something, you know? I mean, today there's all kinds of stuff you could do to fake people's signatures, but back in those days there were very few things. I think it was just either you did it manually, or was a electric pen that you could program it to have somebody's signature, and then it would just automatically sign.
It was a real swinging spot in town.
Like, a lot of
It was about
JFK
it.
signatures aren't worth
Businessmen,
anything
politicians
because
from
they're
Austin,
not
LBJ's
real
friends.
signatures. It was done with an electric
Dallas
pen.
was low broken town back then. I mean,
Okay, we're getting into
toothpicks,
Beverly
play
Oliver's
dominoes,
claims now.
Nice.
We could spend a couple
Jack,
hours on her
that
alone.
was
Oh,
exciting. There were
God.
always cops there. Jack liked him around. Even though he used to
Now,
talk
we
about
did
himself.
make a video called
Kind of a violent tempered man, actually.
Is Beverly Oliver the
The
No,
Bush
Bushka
it's
Lady?
lady,
not.
yeah.
Okay,
I've
so
seen that one.
I sent that video
Back then,
to
they were bad.
Davidovich. That's her name. That's this actress's name.
Mhm.
I sent the
You know,
video
there
to
was
her. She
one
never
case
responded.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, maybe it's not her bag, you know?
One
I know
time
she's
I-
she's an actress.
She's an actress,
Yeah, she just
yeah.
Guy.
But
She moved on to the next role in the next part many years ago.
I don't remember the other guy's name, but he was a weird looking guy.
But I wonder how many people in this film believes the story.
Well,
I know Gary Oldman. I know he believed.
Yeah.
He believed in that there was a conspiracy. So did I think Tommy Lee Jones might have believed it too.
Maybe. I do remember Gary Oldman commenting on it. That's when I learned that he had an English accent. And it really tripped me out because I know him as Lee Harvey Oswald, you know?
And then a couple of weeks later, when I saw him on the television, I screamed like, "Oh, that's him!
She's
That's Jack's friend."
that's not a real accent
Will you
for her
testify,
either. She did a really good job. She doesn't speak that way. She's
I don't think so.
No,
I think she's East European.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the name, yeah, definitely sounds Slavic, yeah.
I don't
Very
want to become
possible.
another statistic.
We
Like,
could call you in, Beverly. We could call you in.
if they can kill the president of the United States, do you think they're gonna think twice about a two-bit showgirl like me?
Exactly. Why did they leave you alive as a loose end to begin with? Why were they in the club where anybody can see them associating with each other? It's not just, you know, you worked for Jack Ruby, you met David Ferry and Lee Harvey Oswald in the company of Jack Ruby once. But I mean, everybody else in that club met them once too. So it's like, it's not only they have to kill her, they have to kill everybody, you know? Like, this is a conspiracy that as time goes on, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not even about JFK's murder, it's about JFK's murder, and then it's about all the several dozen other murders over the next 30 years. Like, any any conspiracy that requires you to go around as a cleanup crew killing people for years and decades after. Like, this is not a good plan, man. You've left way too many loose ends.
We gotta kill that one. We gotta kill this one.
Yeah, and then don't forget, after you send the cleanup crew to kill all those people, you gotta kill the cleanup crew too. And, you know, just to be safe, you might want to kill the guys who killed the witnesses. It's just like, it's a never-ending chain where you just keep having to murder more and more and more people.
I understand the pressure you're under, Barry. Don't think for a minute I don't. We both do.
We don't even need to. You know, her credibility at this point. She used to come up in debates a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to debate about her anymore because no one's believing her anymore.
Here's the deal. She said this stuff. You can believe her or not believe her. There is no way to independently or objectively verify any claim that she ever made with regards to this. Other than the basic facts.
Some of there is. I'll give an example. Like I said this earlier today. We know Beverly Oliver is not the babushka lady because in so many words, she told herself that she was not. And one of the examples of that is Beverly insists that she wears these flat shoes to Dealey Plaza that day in a polka dot dress. The babushka lady did not have flat shoes. So if you wore flat shoes, you were not the babushka lady. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, Beverly said she had a Yashica zoom lens movie camera. Mm-hmm. When it was determined that particular camera did not exist, she then stated that it was a prototype that she had early, that she got from a guy who was associated with Kodak, Ronco or something like some guy that she was familiar with from her days working as her singing days. I forgot where she worked at the time, but somehow she got in touch with or was connected with a guy who was somehow connected with Kodak, and she was able to get this Japanese camera from a guy that was associated with Kodak. I don't understand that part, but anyway, she told us that she had a Yashica zoom lens movie camera. The babushka lady had a still picture camera. Very clear, sharp images of the babushka lady with this camera in her hands in the William Allen photos. It is not a movie camera at all.
Okay.
So she basically has told us that she's not the babushka lady in so many words.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is another good scene with Ruby being interviewed by the Warren Commission in his Dallas jail cell. This is complete quote mining. All of it is quote mining. During this interview, Ruby says, I'm as innocent as any of you men here interviewing me. He explicitly says the words, "There was no conspiracy." But that is not shown to the audience here. They just make it seem sinister, you know?
And I cannot tell the truth here in Dallas. There are people here who do not want me to tell the truth.
So why are you even alive to begin with?
I heard a very interesting take on this by Don, who was with us the other day. Mm-hmm. He said, it's pretty interesting, I think it's feasible, that Ruby did not want to speak there because the mob wanted to take credit for the assassination. Though they didn't do it, they still wanted credit for it, and that's why Oswald was killed. So they could take credit for the assassination.
Oh, now that's interesting. That's very clever.
I thought it was pretty interesting.
That is very
He explains it better. If we see him before we go back home, you should ask him about it. But I thought it was pretty kind of interesting.
That's definitely a different interpretation that I haven't heard before. You know, that actually makes more sense.
I think it's plausible. I don't think it happened, but it's one of the better.
Well, like if you're the mob, you know, I suppose there's no harm in people thinking you're powerful enough to kill the president because people will, you know, get out of your way.
It's the best of both worlds. If you didn't do it and get credit for it, you don't get prosecuted, yet you get the street credibility. Yeah. So that's perfect for them.
Yeah. That's a very interesting interpretation. I've never heard that before.
Tell us now.
My life is in
That's
danger.
A cameo as Jim Garrison, the real life Jim Garrison, who you're seeing on the screen right now. This is a cameo by the real life Jim Garrison playing Earl Warren. That sound you're hearing in the background, that's the sound of Earl Warren rolling over in his grave.
Request that I go back to Washington. That is, if you want to hear further testimony from me, can you do that? Can you take me with you?
No.
That could not be done. There would be no safe place for you. We're not law enforcement officers. Mr. Ruby, there's a great deal at stake in this matter.
No shit.
See, if I am eliminated, there won't be any way of knowing any bit of the truth pertaining to my situation. And consequently, a whole new form of government is going to take over this country. Yeah. And I know that I won't live to see you some other time.
This is one of the most deceptive scenes in the whole movie, in my opinion.
Because I want to tell the truth, and then I want to leave this world.
It shows him saying those words, and then literally the next scene is them wheeling a body out on a gurney. The time between Ruby's interview in his Dallas jail cell for the Warren Commission and his death.
3 years?
3 years. About. Maybe a little more, a little less, but somewhere in the area.
And also there's an autopsy report, declassified, available to the public. You have to assume that the Dallas County Coroner's Office and everyone involved with the autopsy is part of it as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why not? Everybody else has got a hand in this conspiracy. Why not let them have one too, you know?
Well, you got other jurisdictions like the law or the Manhattan, New York county records, or the what was it, district attorney of Manhattan.
How was he involved in this?
Dorothy Kilgallen.
Oh yeah. They faked her death too.
Yeah,
you know?
So you got people from all the way across the country involved now.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, this anytime you need to make the conspiracy bigger, just make it bigger. Anytime you need to pull somebody else into the conspiracy, you just pull them in. It doesn't matter, you know. Like you're just making up shit to begin with. So if the stuff you've made up doesn't fly, just make up some more stuff. I've got a pause right here. The Lou Ivan character, he's saying the Zapruder film establishes 3 shots in 5.6 seconds. That is not true. The 5.6 seconds time frame, it comes actually from the Warren Commission, because the Warren Commission initially, when they published their report, they were not sure of which shot was the one that missed. So they gave scenarios for the first shot misses, the second shot misses, the third shot misses. And they said if it was the second shot, I believe, that had missed, then the time frame for all 3 shots is 5.6 seconds. But I mean, you know what? The honest truth is 5.6 seconds is enough time for all 3 shots. But we today think they had closer to 8 to 11 seconds. But I mean, even if we go with the low ball figure, 5.6 seconds is enough time. It is physically possible to do.
It is. I think it's doable, but I don't think it's probable for Oswald in the situation.
Well, we don't think that that's the time frame, because it wasn't the second or third shot that missed. It was the first one. And if it was the first shot that missed, that increases the time frame to like the maximum allowable amount, 8 to 11 and a half, I believe, 11.2, something like that.
Depends on when you believe the first shot was fired.
Yeah, and that's another factor. Like, we don't really know the exact moment when the first shot was fired. The second and the third hits are recorded on film, so that establishes time. But we know that there was enough time between the first and second shot for the shot to be recognized by Kennedy. He stops waving. He looks around for a moment.
And Connolly definitely relaxed to the first shot.
Yeah, and then he starts waving again. So there's time enough for that to occur. So there would have to have been at least a little gap between the first and second shots. You're looking at least like, I don't know, maybe at the absolute most like 3.5 seconds, maybe 4. It's hard to say because we don't know exactly when the first shot happened.
Right. This is 3 shots in 5.6 seconds. Here. I'm Oswald.
Pause. Get your stopwatch and your clocks out, or your second hand on your watch.
Oh.
It is actually timing. When he does this, he does it in time.
Do you want me to do it? I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. I'm resetting my stopwatch here. All right.
Timing.
Go.
Time?
Between 6-7 seconds.
And that's without...
5.63 seconds.
Yeah, on my stopwatch on my phone, it's 5.6 seconds. So, congratulations, you just did it.
And another misnomer about the shots is you start the shots when the first trigger is pulled.
Yeah.
You don't start at any other time. You don't start before or after.
Mm-hmm.
The clock starts when the first round is fired.
Mm-hmm.
That starts the clock. The last shot is when the head is hit. Anything before and after that doesn't count in the timing.
Yeah, that's true.
Really aiming. Key is the second and third shots.
How much time did Garrison say that took? I think he said it took like 20 seconds.
He said between 6 and 7 seconds, I think.
No, right now when he's timing
that's what he said.
it. Yeah, 6 or 7 seconds?
Almost right on top of each other.
You can go back and check.
Nah,
Takes a minimum 2.3 seconds to recycle it.
No, it doesn't. You can cycle the bolt in a fraction of a second. And you also have to keep in mind...
He just demonstrated that it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah, he did it. And the thing you also have to keep in mind is this was Oswald's gun. It was his gun. He had familiarity with it, you know? If you're just picking up the Carcano carbine for the first time today, okay, you might be slow on it. But Oswald had that gun in his possession for a while. He tried to kill somebody else with it. He fired it. He dry fired it. All of those things allow you to learn the operation of the bolt faster, you know?
There's testimony from Marina Oswald that in New Orleans he cycled the bolt over and over and over again at night.
Yeah,
on their porch.
On their porch, yeah, screened in at night, dry firing it over and over and over again to increase his proficiency in cycling the bolt. You know, it's kind of like the thing when you go through it step by step. You gotta pull the bolt up, pull it back, ejecting the shell, push it forward to push the next round in, and then push the bolt down to lock it, aim, and fire. When you explain it like that, it makes it sound like it's this complicated thing. Like when you explain the process of using your key to open the door, you need to get your key, put your key in the lock, turn the lock over, turn the handle, and push the door open. But I mean, it makes it sound more complicated than it actually is in real life. In real life, this is one fluid motion, and people do it in like a fraction of a second, you know?
The other problem is there was a tree there, blocking the first two shots. By the time they turned the Zapruder film.
Didn't J. Edgar Hoover say something about
If you
that?
look at the FBI film where they reconstructed the shooting, the tree is not in the way.
The first week of March.
I think it is, but only for like a tiny second. You know, it briefly obscures the target, but I emphasize briefly obscures the target.
No way. Yeah. FBI tried 2 sets of tests. Not one of their sharpshooters could match Oswald's performance. Not one. And Oswald was at best a medium shot.
But they didn't know Oswald's performance at the time.
I mean, that's the whole essence of the case to me. The guy couldn't do the shooting. Nobody could.
A bunch of people have recreated his feat. A bunch of people have beat his time.
The Zapruder film is the proof they didn't count on, Lou.
Yeah.
Gotta get our hands on it.
You know, that's the kind of shit that happens when you murder people in public. Sometimes you get proof that you didn't plan for. Did nobody in this conspiracy think, hey, this guy's in public, there's a public crowd there waiting to see him, people might have brought cameras? You know, did
was
nobody
cameras
think
all
of
along
that?
the way.
Yeah, did nobody think of that? Like, you conspiracy boys, you really dropped the ball on this one. Notice that the scope is not mounted directly above the barrel like you would normally see, because this rifle was never intended to take a scope, and it didn't have a place for the brackets to be mounted on, so they actually had to mount it on a special bracket off to the side.
See something, Lou? Why not just shoot Kennedy coming up Houston? There's plenty of time. He's out in the open.
He's also facing the building, and if the motorcade has Secret Service men on each side, or in a follow-up car, and also police officers on each side of the limousine, they are looking the same direction at the school depository where the shooter is, and so if he fires a shot from there, it would take but a glance upward to see that somebody fired a shot up there, and then you have law enforcement rushing that building.
Yeah.
However, if you allow them to turn onto Elm and no one's no longer looking your direction, it gives you a little bit more time, and it causes a little bit more confusion.
Yeah, and you know, even maybe the muzzle flash might have been visible if he got shot coming up Houston. But also, as the target's coming at you, if you're looking through the scope, that's actually sometimes a harder shot to make than if it's moving away from you. Because as it's coming closer to you, you have to constantly be tilting the rifle down, which is a bit more awkward to do. But if it's moving away from you, you compensate by tilting the rifle up, which is a bit easier. I mean, it's not like dramatically easier, but it actually does make it a little bit easier.
I believe Oswald knew that taking a shot with the vehicle on Houston, I think he knew that the likelihood of him being seen was much greater than if he would just allow the vehicle to turn down Elm where everyone's looking away.
Oh yeah, definitely. It increases his chances of escape, and sure enough, that actually worked in real life. He escaped.
And he certainly didn't want to draw any return fire.
Yeah. Like all of those Secret Service guys, they are all experts with the handgun, and it's like they could get you. I was standing at that corner today, like, I mean, I don't know if I could have gotten him, but I could have definitely put rounds through that window that he was in. If I couldn't get him, I could scare the shit out of him.
One shooter at one spot on a radio, maybe 3 teams. I'd say these professional riflemen too, Chief. They're serious people. Hunters. If these riflemen are so professional and serious, patient. Takes skill to kill with the Kennedy should have been hit more times, and not just one fatal time, because only the headshot was fatal.
Yeah,
he could have survived. Doctors believe he could have survived the headshot.
Yeah. I mean, if these riflemen are such professionals and experts, you shouldn't need 3 teams of them. You shouldn't need a spotter. You need one guy with one rifle, and this expert is going to get it done and get out. You know.
And they just keep adding more and more people. It just makes it more complicated.
Yeah. Because that's the story they want to believe. They want to believe this huge, complicated Byzantine conspiracy. We are watching. We're watching it with the deleted scenes. Because this scene does not appear in the original theatric release.
Far, right? Too far.
It is not too far. It's only like a little bit further away. You know what I mean? And again, if these riflemen are professionals and experts, it doesn't matter. You're on Main Street, you're on Elm Street. They can get you either way.
Impossible shot. So
not an impossible shot. It's not that much further away. You know, it's one block.
Change the parade route. Bring them down here. Moving in north.
They did not change the parade route.
They didn't.
The parade always had to go down Elm because they had to access Stemmons Freeway
to get to the trademark.
Yeah, and Main Street, there's a concrete abutment that separates Main and Elm once you're through the triple underpass. This was a 1961 Lincoln Continental. There was no way that car could have jumped the curve.
It was not the average curve either. That thing was chunky. It was like a big curve.
You know what? We were there today, and I totally forgot to get photos. So something to do for me tomorrow morning before we go.
I don't know if it's the same curve or not, but you can look at the old pictures, and it's up there.
Well, we'll take a look.
And that's where you got it. Did they film it from the actual floor?
I believe so.
Change the parade route, man.
I mean, it could be a sound stage, but honestly, I don't know.
You know who the mayor was at the time?
Oil Cabell.
Guess who his brother is?
Who?
General Charles Cabell, deputy director of the CIA.
Boom,
Fired
baby.
in '61 because of the Bay of Pigs fiasco. Moved back to the Pentagon, called Kennedy a traitor. When he came to New Orleans, addressed the Foreign Policy Association. You know who introduced him? Our friend Clay Shaw.
And the Warren Commission called him?
His boss was the one on the Warren Commission who handled all the leads of the intelligence community.
Allen Dulles.
Head of the CIA since '53. Kennedy fired them both. Cabell was his deputy for 9 years. Talk about the Fox investigating the chicken coop. I will have to subpoena them both.
Correlation.
Yep.
It's not evidence of causation. I've been to 3 Mardi Gras down there.
Are they good?
Oh man, it's unbelievable.
Yeah?
Nothing like you've ever experienced. Nothing. I've never experienced. As far as a carnival party type of atmosphere, parade atmosphere, the only thing that can beat that is Carnival in Brazil.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that can beat it.
You see, like that's not really my bag, though. I'm not that person.
No,
you know, it's not my thing. But pay close attention in this scene. There's some A quality, A game symbolism going on here.
Hey, Bertram, sure I know.
I did like the music though.
Who is it, Joe? I've been to all the bars. Nobody wants to talk.
Why should they talk to you? I told your uncle I never met a lawman who wasn't a bum. Big shot businessman. I seen him on the TV news ladder with all the other big shots. The guy's a fag, you know. Goes by another name.
What's the other name?
Shaw. Clay Shaw.
Clay Bertrand is Clay Shaw. Okay.
Like when he says Clay Bertrand is Clay Shaw, that's when the skeleton shows up. You know, the skeleton is a traditional symbol for death. You know.
This is an international trademark.
Is this this is complete speculation, isn't it? Like,
down here
how do we know this took place?
Yeah.
And why is he called?
And actually, Clay Shaw did comment on that. He's like, I'm 6 feet tall. I have a shock of white hair. He was saying like there's no way that I could go around telling people my name is something else and they wouldn't know it was me.
Where did Andrews get Bertrand from? Was he just bullshitting, making something up?
Who knows? Well, he himself says he was on drugs in the hospital, and
maybe he was going to say the name, but thought at the last minute maybe I shouldn't say this, and then just gave Bertrand rather than Shaw.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he knew him. They were both from New Orleans. They were both like higher up on the social chain. You know? Very, very possible they knew each other.
Help on that? I hope so. We could use it.
Your lunch was right, boss, but it's even spookier than we thought. Starting in September 63 on, 2 months before the assassination, there are sightings of Oswald all over Dallas, buying ammunition, getting a telescopic sight fixed, going to rifle ranges. Early November, at a Dallas downtown Lincoln Mercury dealership where he tells the salesman Albert Bogard,
take it out for a test drive.
Despite the fact he has no license, and from what Marina says, doesn't know how to drive, he hits the curves like A.J. Foyt at the Indy 500. Bogart later told his boss he drove like a madman.
Hey, $300 down now, Mr. Oswald. You can drive out of here. What? What is he?
Is that Steve Buscemi?
Him?
No, the other guy.
No, honestly.
I've seen him around in different
afford
things.
to buy a car in this goddamn country.
No, it's not.
Maybe I'll have to go to Russia and buy a car.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's a young
like
Steve
he's trying to draw
Buscemi.
attention to
maybe
himself.
you
A
should.
real moron. He walks out. Salesman remembers him as about 5'7", but we know from Oswald's draft card that he was actually 5'11".
Other witnesses see him on several separate days at different firing ranges. One time, November 9th, he decided to need some practice on the target of the guy next to him.
I ain't paid 2 bits for a target just to have someone else shoot at it.
Nice tattoo, Oswald.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Does it say mom? Dad?
I was shooting at that son of a bitch, Kennedy.
That settle is a cockroach crawling across a white rug.
Then he shows up at Sylvia Odio's, a Cuban lady in Dallas working in the anti-Castro underground. The 2 Cubans introduce him as Leon Oswald.
Because
he's a friend of Something about the man bothers her. About 48 hours later, one of the Cubans calls him back.
Oh yeah. What do you think of Leon Oswald last night?
I don't care. I don't know Oswald.
What he said to us, he said, you Cubans don't have any guts, because Kennedy should have been killed after the Bay of Pigs. And some Cubans should have done it.
It's like he's giving her information she doesn't even ask for. She's scared, doesn't see him again till she sees Oswald's picture in the paper. But the Warren Commission says that Sylvia has bad eyesight because they have Oswald in Mexico at this time trying to get back into Cuba. The CIA has a camera outside the Cuban embassy, and they say that this is Oswald in Mexico.
They say that to the State Department?
I don't know. That guy in that photo, he was later identified. He was an American chemist or something.
Was he identified?
Yeah, I believe so.
The mystery guy? Are
yeah,
you sure?
I believe so. I remember reading that somewhere. Again, David, we wish you were here to not make us so cringy.
This will be a good one for Matt Schufels.
Yeah. We should go looking for that. But I remember reading somewhere that maybe it wasn't that guy. It was another guy that they identified as potentially being Oswald going into the embassy. I will look into that. But I believe one of those guys was identified.
When Washington asked for pictures of Oswald from the embassy, the CIA sent Washington these pictures because of the timing. They thought that they were expecting Oswald to come there, and then, of course, a person comes, so they thought the person that came there, not knowing what Oswald looked like, they thought that was Oswald. But that guy never appears or anywhere. Like, he's not like in the Warren Commission report, and them trying to pass this individual off as Oswald or anything like that. So when people say the government tries to make us believe this Oswald, it's totally false.
Yeah.
They thought he was Oswald at the time, but they admitted that it wasn't him and that they were wrong.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, you have to keep in mind, people try to wax over this, but the truth is there are legit national security implications here. Like, you don't want to publicly admit, hey, we've got a CIA station across the street from the Russian embassy in Mexico, and we're photographing everybody that goes in and out of there, you know? Like, that is not the kind of thing the American government in 1963, 1964 would want to openly admit. It makes, even though it's totally legit, and I'm sure the Russians are doing the same thing in the Soviet Union, it makes them look bad. You know
so
when
did this come to light? Because it's amazing we even know about it now. But there's so much finger pointing after the assassination. That's probably why we know about it.
I think that might have come out in the HSCA, but I'm not sure on that. I'm not really sure. But I think that was when it came out.
If this is Oswald, it must be our third Oswald.
It's interesting the extent to which the Warren
I don't think he's
Commission
identified.
One of these guys was identified, and when I get back home and I have
there was
access,
a smaller, skinnier, blonde guy, wasn't it?
It could have been. It could have been one of the other guys that they said might have been Oswald, but one of those guys was identified. He was a chemist or something. Another guy had like mental health problems or something, but I think at least one of them was identified. I'll have to look into that later, but yeah.
The whole point of the Mexican episode was to lay the blame at Fidel Castro's door. I mean, if Oswald was
not true,
purporting to be
they would
Oswald
never want to do that
Cuba,
because that would start a war.
Well, like this is the point I'm about to make.
Back then killed the president. The American public once again would have supported Cuban invasion.
So why didn't they do that? If the whole point of this is Bay of Pigs version 2.0, then why didn't you do that? Why didn't you leave the blame at Fidel Castro's door, like the whole plan was to do from the beginning? The American public would support the invasion of Cuba, and you could do the thing you wanted to do all along. You know what I mean? If the whole point of this is to get the American public behind another invasion of Cuba, why didn't you do that? If the whole point of this was to lay the blame at Fidel Castro's door, why did you not do that? You know, it just doesn't make sense.
I even have doubts about this photo.
Those people don't know what they're talking about. The backyard photos are real.
This pretty much convicted Oswald in the public's mind.
Yeah, I think we covered that, didn't we?
Fritz
Yeah.
during his
Well,
interrogation
not
that the photo
really.
was fake, not me.
Yeah, he's lying because he's a liar.
That came from...
You mean to tell me that a wife-beating, low-grade sociopath who tried to kill a political figure, successfully killed another figure, killed a cop, tried to kill another cop? You mean to tell me that guy wasn't honest and forthright? Gosh, you're kidding. How unexpected.
Janet Williams
Well, I never saw this picture. That is my face, but my face has been superimposed. The rest of the picture is not me at all. I have done a lot of photographic with this. That picture was made by someone else.
I put this picture to two experts. Look at the way
As an actor, that
shadows
seemed
on the
convincing
nose
when the
fall
way
in
he
a straight line
argued
like
it.
it's high noon, but the shadow down here on the ground reads more like late afternoon or early morning.
Yeah, did you put this photographs to two experts? Were those experts Robert Grodin and Jack White? Because those guys are not experts on anything. They have no accreditation or recognition in their field. They are not recognized by actual photographic experts as being a peer in that discipline. Moreover, shadows are localized visual phenomenon. The apparition of shadows in a photograph can be affected by many things: time of day, time of year, direction you're facing, the presence of objects that could potentially interfere with the natural falling of the light, buildings, telephone poles, trees, all that stuff. A person cannot simply look at a photo and say, this shadow says this shadow says that, therefore this photo is fake. It doesn't work that way.
Plus, they went back and recreated that, and the shadows lined up just the way Oswald's shadow did.
Yeah.
It's pasted on somebody else's body.
And then you also have the testimony of his wife who admitted, I took these photos, and we have the camera that took them, and the negatives. I think we have one negative.
Moreover, we have a modern scientific application of it done at Dartmouth College.
Yep.
And
in 3D.
You can read their methodology. You can see that it's peer reviewed. It's three-dimensional.
I mean, if their methodology was flawed, there's some other photographic expert somewhere else who reads that peer-reviewed publication who would have instantly jumped on that. To
Some
gain
people
some
have done
credit
that,
for
but
himself.
I think it was like it was pseudoscience and non-experts that did it.
Yeah.
People that come up when they need something to debunked. You get the Jim Fetzer like people who will get some other people to try to debunk it, but it hasn't been adequately scientifically debunked with the same science used to produce it.
I mean, the backyard photos, first off, I believe there's 3 backyard photos. So it's not a matter of faking one photograph. You have to fake 3. So if these photographs are fake to begin with, why did you guys fake 3 of them? You just made this job 3 times as difficult as it needs to be. And second, these photos, when you have multiple photographs taken in the same place at relatively the same time, it allows for a technique called stereoscopic image analysis. There is no known way to fake a stereoscopic pair that it would escape detection using this analysis method. So let's think about this for a second. Not only did you guys fake one photo, you faked several photos, and by faking several photos, you gave them the opportunity to utilize stereoscopic analysis. Why are you making it easier for the conspiracy to be exposed? If we sitting here cannot figure out why it logically makes sense for the conspiracy to have done something, then they probably didn't do it.
Implicating him with the rifle and the gun.
So who the hell are you, Alex Heidel or Lee Oswald?
Well, you're the policeman, you work it out.
Yeah, real innocent. Exactly what you would expect an innocent man to.
Did he say it in real life?
I believe so, yeah. I believe he did say that.
Now it gets...
Never mind, who are you? Why? We pulled this ID out of your pocket. Why are you carrying this around?
Positively spooky. In January,
I do criticize the Dallas Police Department on how they interview Oswald.
When the Oswald we know is in Russia.
Of course, we know a lot more about how to interview a person nowadays than they did back then.
Yeah.
But still, Will Fritz was very experienced. It should have just been him and Oswald. It should be all these other people.
Well, Hoover wanted Hosty in there. And you've got Secret Service, you got U.S. Marshals, you have Texas Rangers, you got the United States Postal Service, which actually, the United States Postal Service, that is a federal bureaucracy, So those people have a lot of weight, believe it or not. A U.S. Postal Inspector is a serious deal. The guy has a badge.
I think the most they should have had in that room with Oswald at one time was 2.
Yeah. At the absolute most.
Yeah, and they should not have people switching in and out, tag teaming and all that shit.
No, definitely not.
Put your hand down.
I mean, the truth is, I think Oswald was interviewed by Fritz in the exact same manner that he probably interviewed plenty of other people when he was investigating homicides, and you can't really fault him for that. These people could have never imagined the criticism that they would face even posthumously after their deaths, I'm sure if I could go back and show Will Fritz, hey, dude, this is what people are saying about you decades later, he would have been more careful. But I think he just did things the way he normally did them, and I can't really fault him for that.
Hey, Bill, I found Clay Bertrand. Grab your socks and hose and pull. Clay Bertrand is Clay Shaw.
Now he's being portrayed as a person who betrayed the Garrison probe.
Can you get some
and was working for the government, like a spy. But I think people just left because they thought it was bullshit what he was doing.
Yeah. And there's a scene of that later on in this movie where he says, we're going to trial. We don't have nothing. There's nothing here, You have like these little facts here and there, and then you have your crazy paranoia that has united it into a working explanation. There's an old joke, 3 conspiracy theorists walk into a bar. You can't tell me that's just a coincidence. I like this scene too. I like how it cuts to Vietnam. And heavy fighting in Vietnam today.
Heavy fighting in Vietnam today. 7 more American soldiers died and 23 were wounded. The body count for this week now stands at 67 Americans and 626 enemy soldiers killed.
That's early. 67?
Yeah.
President Johnson, meanwhile...
Actually, I was watching the Ken Burns documentary on the Vietnam War, which if you haven't seen it, I thoroughly recommend it. It's very good. I think troop levels in Vietnam peak in 67, 68.
Yeah, they do.
A little more than 500,000 combat soldiers in Vietnam. That's just fucking nuts, man. The country is like the size of Florida. You got 500,000 combat soldiers there. That doesn't even count like the support staff or the Navy assets that are assisting, offshore with aircraft carriers or coastal bombardment or any of that. So I mean, really, you're looking at like fucking 600,000 American soldiers, all told, counting soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines.
And more agony. Well, the end is not yet. Oh, honey, that's the kid's job. All right, you know I don't like these tribal rituals anyway. Besides, I told you I'm talking to Clay Shaw this morning.
Honey, we're going to Antoine's with the kids like we do every year.
No, I told you I was talking to Shaw.
Well, why in the world did you do it in the middle of Easter Sunday?
Because when I scheduled it, I didn't realize it was a holiday.
Say, honey, look at the calendar.
You were there. Why didn't you say something?
You said A Sunday, not Easter Sunday.
Clay Shaw is important.
Well, we're not.
I didn't say that, Liz. I didn't say that.
That's really good acting from that small child. Unless he just happened to do that coincidentally in that moment.
I think he or she happened to.
Yeah, that's really fortuitous timing.
There was something the kid was looking at off screen. I think somebody was probably doing something off screen for the kid.
Yeah.
Mr. Garrison,
one of my favorite actors ever.
Oh yeah, Tommy Lee Jones, big time. He's great.
I feel this is a conversation we might better have out of the everyday bustle in this office.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, in an investigation we're conducting, your name has come up a number of times.
I wouldn't imagine where.
We're good.
We recently talked to a number of men who claim to know
Yeah, I think I'm going to be ready to quit about 11.
You acquainted with David Logan?
No, never heard of him.
We can resume.
We can resume tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I really do want to get to the range on Friday morning because
No, I don't believe I know anyone.
Okay. So let's, if we're gonna call it at 11, let's go hard and let's get it done.
Several evenings later, you had him over for dinner at your apartment on
because we, in the original theatrical release, there's an intermission after the scene where David Ferry's found dead. So I kind of view that as like the halfway point, but I don't think that's halfway. I think that's like 2/3 of the way done, you know.
Perhaps a few more details about the evening will refresh your memory.
We're actually hitting the 90-minute mark, so I do want to take another quick break just to keep the size of the files smaller.
Okay.
So that they're each 90 minutes. That way, when I'm editing it later, it won't be, you know, too much for one file. Because I'm thinking I'm gonna have to post this in several parts. So if each part is like 90 minutes long, I think that's like a good amount, you know, for a YouTube video or whatever.
I often have a friend over sitting at one end while I sit at the other. It's precisely the point of a long dining table. The splendor of the meal adds to the enjoyment of it.
I would imagine that a uniform waiter helps.
It adds a taste of elegance, for which I must confess a weakness now and then. I call him Smedley. His real name is Frankie Jenkins, but I could hardly imagine anything more uncouth during dinner than my turning toward the kitchen and hollering, "Frankie!"
Is steadily better.
Where's all this leading to, Mr. Garrison?
Yeah, Frankie, Snedley, it's very similar.
That is absolute nonsense. The quarter is filled with vivid imaginations, my dear Mr. Garrison, but grimy young hoodlums who will say and do anything, as you well know.
Mr. O'Keefe told us that a man named David Ferry stopped by the house along with another young man.
Who?
David Ferry.
You stop recording?
No,
it's still going.
I believe I know anyone by
It's just I
that
gotta
name.
move the mouse because the screen turns off, and I want to make sure. Wow, you guys really went all out on those powdered wigs.
The four of you parted early into the morning hours. Take a look at this picture.
Well, I'm sure I've never met anyone of such bizarre appearance.
Is there any evidence they knew each other?
No.
I know they were. Someone put a picture out with some people that look vaguely like. Well, there's a picture of Clay Shaw, but there's another guy in the picture that they say was David Ferry. He doesn't look like him though.
I don't know.
I believe there was a man with the name.
I was talking with Fred Litwin about this scene. This kind of behavior that these guys are engaging in the even today, this would totally preclude you from any kind of security clearance. And it's not because of some moralizing thing that you're gay or that you engage in like kinky sex or whatever. It's more that this kind of behavior makes you such an easy target for blackmail and extortion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That you're just this huge security risk. No, the CIA, the NSA, the ONI, the DIA, FBI, no one would give you any kind of security clearance if they had the faintest indication. Back in those days, if they even suspected that you were gay, your career would be done right there because you're just too much of a security risk.
That worked over the Chamber of Commerce. Is that the man you had in mind?
No, it was not. Mr. Shaw, can you identify this man?
Naturally. Are you claiming, Mr. Garrison, that Mr. Oswald also had dinner with me?
Mr. Shaw, have you ever met Lee Harvey Oswald?
You really have me consorting with a sordid cast of characters, don't you?
Answer the question.
Of course not. It's such a pity, that assassination. In fact, I admired President Kennedy, a man of truth, Nash, wife of impeccable taste.
Well, why don't we just go ahead and order without your daddy? I don't think he'll mind.
Oh, Shirley, Tim.
Kids, put your water back.
Daddy coming, Mama.
Soon. He's coming soon. He's real sorry he couldn't start with us, but he promised he'd be here.
Daddy never.
I think that guy Scott sent a request to join our group.
Oh, really? The Dallas group?
Yeah, the Dallas group.
Italian newspaper
I mean,
article saying
once
that you
this trip is done, that group is pretty much done.
But
he should join Fair Play.
this
He was in
company
Fair
was
Play. I guess he didn't like what he was
CIA
seeing.
to transfer funds
Probably
lately
too much.
for legal political
Too
espionage.
many of us.
Judith criticism.
Says that this company was
You don't have to be in
expelled
fair
from
play to
Italy
get Judith criticism.
Well aware that that's not-
That's
No, Rob Clark's
easily obtainable.
It also says that
There's a
this
lot of
company was
conspiracy
linked to
theorists
the
who don't
Silver
like
J
Judy
Tool
Baker.
Company here in Houma,
Rob
Louisiana,
Clark,
which helped provide
Carmine,
arms to
Trish and Zach,
Garrison,
Andrea Slonick. She doesn't like
She hates
Judy Baker. Her and Judy have some drama going
I
back.
trade everywhere. I am accused, as are all businessmen, of all things. I somehow go about my business, make money, help society the best I can, and try to promote free trade in this world.
Mr. Shaw, you ever been a contract agent for the Central Intelligence Agency?
And if I were, Mr. Garrison, do you believe I would be here today talking to somebody like you?
No. People like you don't have to, I guess.
May I go?
People like you, they just walk between the raindrops.
May I go?
Yes.
Regardless of what you may think of me, Mr. Garrison, I am a patriot, first and foremost.
I've spent half my life in the United States military, serving and defending this great country, Mr. Shaw, and you're the first person I ever met who considered an act of patriotism to murder his own president.
Now, just a minute, sir. You are way out of line.
You are way out of line. That's an absurd and ridiculous thing for the district attorney to say. Without
If he
any,
said it.
Yeah, I don't think he did, but without any evidence whatsoever.
It was most pleasant.
This was probably theatrics for the film.
Yeah.
I wish to extend to each of you and to each of your families my best wishes for a happy Easter.
Somebody in one of the groups, I can't remember where or when, posted a still from this scene around Easter.
Someone said it one year, and then the next year I posted I quoted it with the picture.
Oh, so that was you.
I wasn't the one that originally said it though.
Yeah.
But I was original to post a picture with it.
Nice. That's a real nice flourish that only us real nerds appreciate, you know?
One may smile and be a villain. God damn it, we got one of them. Did you see that?
Alright, I'm gonna just pause it here real quick and cut this audio file down so it's only at 90 minutes.